Hello, hello, and welcome to the Fearful Goddess podcast, where I'll be talking to you about all things travel, sex, and radical self acceptance. I am your host, Jocelyn Silva, sexual empowerment coach, sex educator, and full time digital nomad. So, up until now, I've only been recording my podcast through audio on my phone, but I've been wanting to for so long to start a YouTube channel. So now my podcast will be on YouTube on video, so you can actually see me talking, and it'll also be on everywhere else where you can find podcasts. So, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of those different avenues. Okay. This is my very first official long form YouTube video, and my first time being consistent with my podcast. And I'm so fucking excited because I have so much to fucking share with you guys. I have so much to talk about. I have so much life experience that I think could really support you on your journey. And so I'm super stoked to go on this journey with you and figure this out. Okay. So before I get into today's topic, which is why I became a sex coach, I would love if you could please subscribe if you're on YouTube, subscribe if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. Please drop me a review if you really enjoy what you're listening to. Drop me a comment, share any nuggets of wisdom that you get from this. It really, really helps me to reach more people. So please go ahead and do that, and I would super duper appreciate it. Okay, great. So if you're new here, what's up? I hope that this video offers you the opportunity to get to know me a little bit more, who I am, how I got to where I am now, and everything I've gone through to get here. Okay. So, a little bit about me. My name is Jocelyn. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I'm a first generation Latina. My mom is from El Salvador. My dad's from Mexico. Spanish is my first language. I grew up in a very loving family and also a very conservative family, which is actually one of the biggest reasons why I became a sex coach, right? So, actually, let's just dive into that. Why did I become a sex coach? Because that actually has a lot to do with my story, right? Okay, so as I said, I grew up in a very loving family, but it was also a very conservative family. And growing up in a first generation family, right, it comes with its own, how do you say, it comes with its own things, for lack of a better word, right? So I was really, really Catholic growing up. I went to Catholic school from kinder to eighth grade and from ninth to 12th grade. So, pretty much from kinder to 12th grade. And I was really, really involved in my church from a very young age. So, when I was younger, I was like an altar server. And then I became a lector. And when I was in eighth grade, I like ran for the student council, and I was like the president of student council, and I was very involved in my church, and I was part of the Stations of the Cross every year, and I would go to church all the fucking time. Like I was there almost every fucking day. I loved going to church. Like me and Jesus Christ were homies, okay? I wasn't one of those kids that like hated going to church, but because my mom made me. No, like I genuinely adored going to church, okay? When I was eighth grade, I even won a scholarship for being most involved in my parish. And then when I got into high school, right, it kind of rolled over. So obviously, like I made new friends, and that was really nice. But I always maintained like my religiosity, right? Like always wanted to be really close to God, always wanted to be really close to Jesus. And it was pretty easy doing that, like going to a Catholic school, right? Because you have like religion class, you have a chapel on campus, which was great for me, right? At that time. So in ninth grade, I made new friends and everything was going great, wasn't too much of a big deal. Um, but once I hit 10th grade, that's when things kind of started to get a little weird, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, my friends started like smoking weed, and I met a guy on MySpace, right? At the time there was MySpace, and his we're not going to say his name, but but I met him on MySpace and we dated. And it was a really interesting dynamic because he was also really religious and Catholic, and he also wanted to be a priest, and I wanted to be a nun, right? So it was like a weird dynamic. Like, I think I met him like in 10th or 11th grade, and we started dating. Well, this is when I started to really feel the effects of being a first generation woman raised in a Catholic household, raised with a really strong Catholic presence, right? So I remember him and I would like make out and things would get hot and heavy, obviously, because we're fucking 15, 16 years old, like hormones are raging, and he was fucking hot, right? So I remember us being like, okay, cool, like we're gonna do these sexy things, right? We're gonna like make out and we're gonna like whatever, I'll give you a blow job and you can like finger me, like that's fine, right? But then these are the things that we have to do after. So we'd be like, okay, we have to pray 3 rosaries every day. We have to go to confession this week. We have to give God a sacrifice, which would be like for one day out of the week we wouldn't talk, and that was like our sacrifice to God for like the sinful thing we're about to do, right? And then we'd be like, okay, great. So we do our thing, and then afterwards we check in. Hey, did you pray your rosary? Hey, did you go to confession? Okay, I'm not talking to you today. Okay, great. I'll talk to you on Thursday or whatever day it was, right? So it created this energy of like, sex is bad, doing sexual things are bad. And if I do them, I have to make sure that I ask for forgiveness just to make sure that God still loves me, right? And it kind of turned into a really fucked up shame cycle. It got to the point where I was literally going to confession once a week. And it was fucking hard, right? Because I would go to confession with just riddled in shame and fear. Because my biggest fear was to go to hell. My biggest fear was that God wouldn't love me, right? So after going to confession once a week for like several weeks in a row, finally the priest actually came up to me and said, hey, Jocelyn, you don't have to come once a week. You can come once a year. And I looked at him and I said, no, Father, you don't understand. Like like I've been doing a lot of really bad things. Like I have to come to confession once a week. And he looked at me and he goes, you'll be fine if you come once a year, Jocelyn. And I don't know if like maybe he sensed, right, like the shame that I was feeling, or he sensed, or maybe even he felt bad for me, right? Just like, fucking hell, girl, like you're not even doing, all you're doing is like sucking your boyfriend's dick, right? It's not like you're killing anybody, but in my mind, I was doing the worst possible thing that you could do as a woman, right? As a first generation Latina woman, Catholic woman, right? So I graduated high school. Oh, actually, before then, this is important to mention. At this time, my friends, like I said, had started smoking weed, and obviously you're in experimentation phase. And I was so obsessed with not sinning that I actually stopped hanging out with my friends. I stopped hanging out with a lot of my friends because I was so scared that if I hung out with them, they would tempt me to do sinful things. So I started eating lunch on at the chapel. Like literally I would eat lunch with Jesus. Like I would sit with the Eucharist and eat lunch as a 15, 16, 17-year-old girl in high school, where I should have been shooting the shit with all my homies. No, I was eating in church, right? I was part of Christian leadership. I would pray rosaries once a week with my friends in the church. And I actually won the religion award in high school. So, and I was the only senior that got to lead the senior retreat. Okay, so just to give you an idea of like how religious I was when I was a teenager and a child. So then I left high school, and when I left high school, I met my first, I would say, official boyfriend, because my first boyfriend from MySpace, I guess he wasn't official, so I guess this would be like my second official boyfriend, but this one I still consider to this day to be one of the loves of my life, and I think about him fondly, and I still love him so much, and he knows who he is, right? If he ever watches this or listens to this. Um, and it was such a beautiful experience. So he worked at Spencer's, and I remember just thinking he was so hot. And I was like, hey, like, started flirting with him. He asked me for my number. We started dating. And a few months into dating, I just suddenly felt this feeling of like, I think I'm ready to have sex. And by this time, I had already started college. And by this time, I had already gotten a little like interested in learning about feminism, right? Like what feminism is, like understanding like queer identities, because I was also kind of learning about my bisexuality and coming to terms with that as well, right? So I remember I had sex with him for the first time. And even though like the sex itself wasn't that great, because it's like your first time having sex, but the experience was so beautiful. Like he was so tender and sweet, and he lit incense and candles, and he played Bauhaus because we were really into like goth at the time. And he cuddled me and he held me, and he was wonderful. And I'm so grateful that he's the one who introduced me to sex, because he just made sex so awesome. Like, we started going to sex shops together, and he would ask me what I liked and what I didn't like, and we would experiment, and it was so much fun, and it was playful, and it was kind, and it was above all just so loving, right? And so through this, I started having this huge, like, what the fuck moment, right? Where I was like, how is this wrong? Why have I been told my entire life that this is bad, right? And I started questioning everything. I started questioning religion. I started questioning the church. I started questioning my mom, right? Like, and I got angry because I was like, why the fuck have people been telling me that this is bad? Sex is beautiful. Sex is amazing. Like, I want to fucking have more of this. You know what I mean? It was amazing. So as as it happens, the pendulum swung from one extreme of religiosity to a complete other extreme, and I just became full-fledged atheist. And I just said, fuck everyone, fuck everything. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want with my body. I got really into feminism. I got really into social justice. And I was like, I fucking hate the church. I hate religion, like religion, right? It was just all like, I just want to get away from that, and I just want to do whatever I want, and I want to be free, right? Now, this sounds amazing, but what tends to happen when you don't have a moral compass or a solid belief system is that it starts to become challenging to understand what's right from wrong. Now, even though religion has brought a lot of sadness into my life, I got to be honest with you and say that religion also brought a lot of really beautiful things. Like, it gave me, again, a sense of a moral compass. It also helped me understand the importances of like love and forgiveness and compassion, right? So without that, I was kind of just left to make some really fucked up decisions based on a lot of really selfish reasons. And this is when my pattern of cheating on every person I dated started. It took me a really long time to finally open up about this, but the reason why I want to open up about it is because I know that the people that follow me, I know that the people that work with me, I know that many of you that are watching or listening to this are probably in the boat of have either cheated on your partner and you feel like shit about it and you haven't forgiven yourself about it, or you are currently cheating on your partner and you don't know what to do about it. And your conscience is eating you alive. And I want you to know you're not alone. I want you to know that you can get through it. I want you to know that you can forgive yourself and that you can become a better person from it. So I cheated on, after my first, my second boyfriend, I cheated on him. And then I just started dating people, and I just became incredibly reckless with my sexual behavior. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like, when I say reckless, I don't mean like having sex with a lot of people. You can have sex with as many fucking people as you want. I don't care, right? Like, have sex with thousands and thousands of people if you desire. The issue is when we have sex with people in an unethical manner, meaning we're lying, we're cheating, we're manipulating, right? And that is what I was doing. I was lying, cheating, and manipulating to get my way, to get what I wanted, right? So, started that really fucked up pattern. But at the same time, I was also um, facilitating workshops on sex education, and I got really into sex education and sexual empowerment. So when I was 20 years old, I became a sex educator with the collective called Coochie Los Angeles, which was like a queer and trans focused collective. And then from there, I got my bachelor's degree in gender and women's studies with an emphasis on race and ethnicity. I managed a sex shop for 4 years called A Touch of Romance. Now they're called Lovers. Um, and then I got my master's degree in social work with the intention of becoming a licensed clinical social worker, so I could be a human sexuality sex therapist. Um, but that is kind of like where my life blew up and shit hit the fan, right? So I obviously became so passionate about educating people on sex and learning more about sex and having as much sex as I could, right? But it was coming from a place of deep despair. It was coming from a place of desperation for validation. Like, I felt like I needed someone to tell me that I was beautiful all the time so that I could believe I was beautiful. I needed to pursue someone because I needed to feel desired all the time, because inside of me was so much emptiness, so much self-hatred, and my conscience was just like eating me alive, right? Because of all the fucked up things that I was doing. But I had no moral compass, I had no belief system, so I didn't really even know what to do, what the right thing was. And I fucking learned the really, really, really hard way. Okay. Now, mind you, I wanted to be a sex therapist since I was 20. Like, that's when I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But my life experiences honestly set me up for where I am now, because if I had taken a shortcut and became a sex therapist like at 24, trust me, I would have not been a good one, because in my private life, I would have been doing the complete opposite of what I was preaching. I can, with 100% confidence, sit here and tell you that everything that I preach to you in my content on my Instagram, on my TikTok, and here, YouTube, Spotify, all these other places, wherever I speak, wherever you get my content, every single word I say is rooted in practicing what I preach. Everything that I say, I actually fucking do when no one is watching me. Why? Because I learned what it fucking feels like to be a hypocrite. I know what it feels like to be a person that has a double life. I know what it feels like to lie to myself and others to get what I want. And I never want to be that person ever, ever again. Ever. But like I said, I learned the hard way. Okay. So after I got my master's degree, I was like, I want to get, because I kind of took like a break from, all the things sexuality, just because I was getting my degree and I was competing in salsa dancing. And I was also like trying different things in social work, which I fucking hated. It was awful. I like interned at the Department of Children and Family there. Was it Children and Family Services, CPS, for a year. And it was the worst year of my fucking life. It was fucking terrible. Anyways, so I, was like, okay, I got to get back into like sexual health, because that is my dream, that is my goal, that is what I want. Well, lo and behold, the Pleasure Chest was actually hiring for a management position, and I was so excited because I was like, amazing, I'm going to get back into it. I'm going to start selling sex toys. And they also had a really great sex education program, so I was like, fuck yeah, I can like do workshops and all the things, right? Well, by this time I had started dating someone and I fucking fell in love with them, and it was a really, really beautiful relationship. Now, I knew that my tendencies were to cheat, were to lie and manipulate to get my way. And I didn't want to repeat this pattern with my partner. So I went to a therapist and I said, hey, I have this really gnarly pattern of cheating. I have not cheated on my current partner and I do not want to cheat on them. Can you please help me out? Right. And so I went to therapy with her for a few months. One day I had a really, really awful panic attack in therapy and I stopped going because I was so scared. And 6 months later, I was back to cheating. And I was doing it even more recklessly and sloppy and just not giving a fuck. I really just truly did not give a fuck, right? I just cared about myself and did not care about anybody else. And that's just the reality. And that's just my truth at that time of my life, right? And so I was working at the Pleasure Chest when I got a call from my partner. At that time, they had become my spouse because we got married 6 months before then. And they called me and they asked me why our bed smelled like cologne. And needless to say, I had gotten caught and it was awful. And I really, really hurt them. And I absolutely hated myself. Hated myself. I spiraled into a suicidal depression when they left me and desperately messaged an old professor, which had done something similar to me. So I kind of felt like he could help me out with it. Where like he was caught cheating on his wife with a bunch of my peers. So I hit him up and I said, hey, I'm in this situation. Like, what do I do? And he says, have you cheated before? And I'm like, yes. And he goes, would you say that you do it compulsively? I said, yes. He's like, great. Go to a Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous meeting. I was like, awesome. So I did, and that program gave me my life back. That program taught me the importance of integrity. And that program gave me a spiritual guide, which I did not have, right? Because at the time I was so distraught and so lost and didn't have a moral compass. And I needed something to fucking believe in. I needed something to believe in that wasn't Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? Like, I needed something to believe in that was in alignment with my belief systems around sexual empowerment and liberation. And no shade to any of the Christians that are listening to me. You know, many of my clients are Christian and or Catholic. If that's the belief system you choose for yourself, then amazing. I think that any belief system has beauty in it. Unfortunately, Catholicism and Christianity has done me dirty. And so I just have no desire to be a part of it. But I respect everyone for their own beliefs, right? So gave me my life back. I was in that program for 3 years and I learned the hard way. Like I was celibate for a year and a half and I learned the hard way, like how to be a person of integrity, how to speak truth and not manipulate people, how to be honest about my desires and what I want, and to not give up this fear, right? Because me cheating, part of it was, yes, the desperation I felt for validation, but it was also this desperation I felt to keep someone around. It's like I wanted my cake and to eat it too, right? Like if you're around and I have my side pieces, then I get everything, right? Versus just being like, yo, I would love to have sex with so and so. Can we have a conversation about it? Right. And I had already at this time kind of been learning about open relationships. And actually my partner and I were trying to be in an open relationship, but it just wasn't going, I guess, as quickly as I would like it to be, right? Or I just didn't feel the freedom that I wanted to feel in that relationship. So after that, I got into, like I said, 12 step, was working on myself hard. I fell off the face of the planet. I let go of a lot of friends because I'm like, I cannot be hanging out with these goobers that I was hanging out with before. I needed to really just like be surrounded by people that were spiritual and people that were grounded and people that were people of integrity and people that were good for me, right? People that were good for me. So, after all of that, I found this book that was called How to Be a Badass at Making Money. And I read it and I fell in love with it. And it really kind of taught me like how to have a better relationship with money. And after that, I kind of became more interested in personal development and, self improvement. I started dating someone else, and that till this day I would consider is the healthiest relationship I'd ever been in. Um, Despite how it started, because it started a little wonky, but it turned out to be the healthiest relationship I ever been in. And shortly after that, my mom got really sick, and so when she got sick, we all thought that we were going to lose her. Luckily, we didn't. But while she was in her coma because she got pneumonia, I pretty much told the universe, I said, if you give me my mom back, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And so my mom came back and she's been healthy and better than ever. And so then I went to an astrologist because I'm like, okay, the universe gave me my mother. So what do I have to do? And the astrologist looked at me and said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a sex therapist. I want to help people have better sex lives. And I want to travel the world doing it. And she goes, okay, then that's what you got to do. That's your calling. That's your purpose. And just like that, the same day you know, I quit the job that I had, which was at a shitty fucking startup tech company where we like delivered food or whatever. I don't know. So I quit my job, which by the way, my boss was a racist and said a lot of shitty things about me being Latina, but that's for like another time. If you want to know about it, let me know. Let me know in the comments if you want to hear that story. So I quit my job and I hired a life coach and I said, all right, I need help. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, because one of the things that Jen Sincero in her book, You Are a Badass, says is hire yourself a coach. So I did. And my coach said, well, what do you want to do? And I told her like fucking stuttering, like, oh, I want to be a sex therapist and travel the world. And she goes, well, have you ever heard of sex coaching? And I said, no. And she goes, amazing. She's like, you're going to start sex coaching. She's like, can you coach someone if you had them in front of you right now? I said, absolutely. I've been doing this for several years. Of course I can help people. She's like, great. You're going to take 4 to 6 people. You're going to take them on a 4 to 6 week journey for free. And then you're going to ask them to write you a testimonial. And then little by little, you're just going to start charging individuals as you start to see their progress, and you're going to start your business. And she asked me, how do you feel? And I'm like over here bawling. And I said, I'm scared. And she said, well, this is just one of the things where you're going to have to feel the fear and do it anyway. And I got that tattooed on my arm, baby, because I fucking love that quote. That quote changed my goddamn life. And I've just been doing scary shit since. So I became a sex coach for several reasons. My life story is a big one, right? I became a sex coach because I know what it feels like to have sexual shame growing up in a Catholic household. I became a sex coach because I know what it feels like to be a cheater, a liar, a manipulator in my sex and romantic life. And I worked my ass off on becoming a better person. I became a sex coach because I want to fucking help the world have more sex, feel great about themselves, love themselves, and to forgive themselves, and to know that they are worthy, that you are worthy of pleasure, that you are worthy of bomb sex, that you are worthy of being loved and loving, and that you are just, you're worthy of all the goodness that this life has to offer you. But the number one reason why I became a sex coach is because of my mom. Now, what do I mean by that? My mom shamed me for my sexuality growing up. My mom told me masturbation was wrong. My mom told me that I shouldn't have sex until I get married, right? But my mom also comes with her traumas. She was also abused as a child. She also has her shit. And so when I coach my clients, when I share my story with you, I'm doing it for my mom. Because I wish that my mom had access to this kind of support when she was younger, so that she could also enjoy her sex life. And so instead of imposing shame on me, she could have empowered me sexually. I don't blame her, because I'm sure in her mind, I know that in her mind, she thought she was doing the right thing. I resented her for a really long time, but I learned to forgive her because I know it was coming from a good place. So these are the reasons why I became a sex coach: my life story, and most importantly, my mom. I'm launching my new group coaching program, my 8-week group coaching program for women called Shameless Desire, which is launching this Monday, January 8th. Hold on. Wait, what's today? Today is oh goodness gracious. Today's the 5th, the 8th of January, 2024. And it's an 8-week group coaching program for women to heal sexual shame. And everything that I experienced and used in my journey, I am going to give you in this program. This program is not like any other program I've created before or have actually ever seen before. And I promise you that you will not be the same person after. So if you want to hear more about that, go to my Instagram at I am Jocelyn Silva. Check out my TikTok at I am Jocelyn Silva. Sign up for my newsletter, which you could do on my website, www.jocelynsilva.com. And thank you so much for being here and for listening. And I really hope that you got something out of me sharing why I became a sex coach and my story. Remember that you are so loved and so supported, worthy and deserving of everything amazing this life has to offer you. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave me a review. And also let me know what else you want me to talk about. Have an amazing, wonderful day. Mwah! I'll see you in the next one.